Now, I want to talk about two other factors in today's class meeting that contribute to this fragmentation of power. That, this idea that we ought not think about Congress as a single point of decision-making authority. That would suggest that Congress is unified and integrated, right? But Randall Ripley and Richard Fenno and these people tell us that in its ordinary state, power is spread out all over the place, that Congress is a fragmented institution. So I want to talk about two additional things that contribute. We know now about the constituency focus and the representation function, right? I want to talk about two additional things that sort of contribute to that fragmentation of power. The first of which is the idea of divided government, okay? And this is the idea that it has to do with the political parties, okay? So there's actually two forms of divided government. The first form of divided government exists when you have a president of one party and the other party has a majority of seats in both chambers of Congress. And this would have been typified by the 114th Congress. Okay? I think we looked at these numbers last time. I think I shared this with you in a little bit different context. In the Congress that we're currently in, okay, that was elected in November of 2014, and that Congress began in January of 2015, and it will continue through January of 2017. So we're almost done with the 114th Congress. We have just a couple of months left, okay? But we looked at these numbers last time. We said that the Republicans currently have 54 seats in the Senate, so 54% majority, and in the House of Representatives they have almost a 57% majority. Okay. What did we say, by the way? Who remembers? I know we talked about this last time. What's going to happen in the 115th Congress in this regard? Which party has a majority of the seats in the 115th Congress? The one that was just elected last Tuesday and will begin in January of 2017. The Republicans. Now, are their majorities going to be bigger or smaller than what we're seeing here on the screen? Yeah, we said actually they're going to be smaller, right? That the Republicans lost some seats, right? The Democrats picked up some seats in the Senate and they picked up some seats in the House, but not enough to give them a majority. The Republicans will still have a majority, but they'll be slimmer majorities. I think the Republicans will have 51 Senate seats, so a 51% majority compared to this 54% majority. And I think their majority went down from just under 57% here, and I think it'll be just like right around 54% in the next Congress. Okay, so. Again, let me back up here. This is, why is this divided government? Why is this the first form of divided government? Well, because obviously President Obama is a Democrat, right? So you have a Democrat in the White House, and then you have the Republicans that have majorities in both chambers of Congress. Okay? So that's the first form, right? That's this right here. Okay? The president of one party and the other party has a majority of seats in both chambers of Congress. And that obviously can produce some frustrations for the legislative process. Right? I mean, it may be too obvious to say, but let's say the obvious anyway, right? The frustration here is that you have you would presume a Republican legislative agenda in Congress that the president is opposed to in most aspects, right, and may be prepared to veto legislation passed by a Republican majority. And certainly the Republican majority in the House and the Senate are not receptive to the legislative agenda coming from the White House. Okay, the other form, the second form of divided government, exists when you have one party with a majority of seats in one chamber of Congress and the other party with a majority of seats in the other chamber of Congress. Okay, so that was an illustration of that is the previous Congress, the 113th Congress. So let's look at those numbers again. Okay, I think we looked at this last time, but just to refresh our memories, this is the Congress that was elected in November of 2012, okay, and so that session began in January of 2013 and ran through January of 2015. And here you can see that the Democrats had a 54% majority in the Senate, and the Republicans have almost a 54% majority in the House of Representatives. Okay? So again, this is the second form of divided government. It looks like this. If you like pictures, here's the picture, right? Where one party has a majority of seats in the Senate and the other party has a majority of seats in the House of Representatives. In the case of the 113th Congress, the Democrats had the majority in the Senate, the Republicans had the majority in the House. And of course, during that 113th Congress, President Obama was in the White House, and, you know, I think I was talking a little bit last time about maybe President Obama's frustrations with immigration reform, right? That President Obama had said during the 2012 campaign when he was running for re-election that if he was re-elected, immigration reform would be a top priority, and he would sign immigration reform legislation. But the problem that we saw during the 113th Congress is that you had this second form of divided government. And so the Democratic majority in the Senate could not produce a version of immigration reform legislation that was consistent with the version of immigration reform that was produced in the Republican majority House. And so nothing happened. Right? My good friend and colleague William Bianco, who's at Indiana University, says that the second form of divided government is more likely to produce the kind of gridlock or stalemate in the political process that frustrates the American people than the first form. Okay? You obviously have problems with the first form, okay? But Professor Bianco says that it's really this form of the gridlock that is the most problematic, and that makes the legislative process very difficult.